All right, thank you everybody for coming out. Let's get started. We're just a couple moments late. First, I'd like to thank our sponsor, TD City, has brought wonderful donuts and sodas and drinks and treats for everybody. Feel free to help yourself. You can hop back up there anytime. Let's talk real quick, just a bit of business. You should all have gotten a copy of 3 pieces of paper. Those are the topics we're going to be going over tonight, so you have some of the information we based our presentations off of tonight. My boss, Paul Smith, should be here to do the second part of the presentation. He went home to change and rest, and he walked just through the door right now. So he will be here to do the second part, but I'll get us going with the first topic, which is winterization. Why should you get your properties ready for winter? Any ideas?
Prevent damage.
Exactly. Winter is a little different than the other seasons. It tends to cause a little bit more damage. And it also tends to be a little harder to fix damage during the winter. So the better you can prepare, the better off you are going to be. When you winterize your properties, you reduce costs, lower risk, and you ensure maintenance. And also, you increase tenant satisfaction, because now they don't have to deal with that branch scraping against the window all winter long, etc., etc. So let's talk through some basic principles of ways that you can prepare for the snow, because it is coming. Plumbing. You probably don't want this beautiful ice sculpture in your tenant's living room. So to prevent that from happening, you should do 2 things. You should check the exterior plumbing first. Go through and make sure that the hoses and where they attach in the spigots are all drained and that they're all set up properly for the winter. You should also insulate exposed areas. I talked to a landlord last winter who had an eave on the roof and it was broken out right here, and they thought, oh, no big deal, no water will get in because it will flush off. Yeah, but plenty of cold air got in, which broke a pipe. You don't want to have that happen to you. So make sure you check. Make sure that you're insulated both inside and outside. Landscaping and roofs. You should make sure and flush your sprinklers because you don't want those freezing and bursting on you. You should check the leaves. I know they're annoying to rake up, but if you have snow on top of the leaves, first, it's not going to be great for your lawn. The second, they're going to get really slippery. You should take care of trees because those trees have just spent all spring and summer and fall growing. And so where you trimmed them back perfectly for last year, now they've grown out and they're going to scratch against the windows, like I said earlier. They're going to scrape against the roof. They're going to cause all kinds of potential damage. And then last but not least, the gutters. You should clean them out, make sure they're securely fastened so that if Santa Claus falls off the roof, he has something to hold on to on his way down. You should set them up nicely. And also you might want to have a nice spot where you can attach your Christmas lights. HVAC. This is a fun time of year because you're switching from the air conditioners to the heaters. And for some reason, to me, it seems to go so much faster than the spring. You go straight from blowing cold air to blowing hot air. And so it's important that you take care of both of those issues. For the cooling, especially for swamp coolers, you want to make sure that they're drained, make sure that they're not going to pose a problem or a risk, and that they're all set up and winterized. And then also you want to set up your furnace. Probably put air filters into them, get them all ready, and get them blowing hot air. Because let me tell you a secret. If there's a problem with your furnace, it's a lot easier and a lot cheaper to get it fixed now than it will be in November when they start really needing it. Just a little idea. Doors and windows. Check to make sure that they close and seal. Inspect the weather strips and consider insulation tape and plastic. The last place that I actually rented, we had these beautiful skyline windows right along the top of the bedroom that we had. And it was way up high, and they were gorgeous and let in lots of light. But they were single paned, and they let out lots of heat. The landlord went in and put up this fancy cellophane type stuff. He said it cost him like 20 bucks to put it up, and it made a world of difference. We didn't need to put double pane windows and stuff in there. So there are things like that you might be able to look into. Now, extermination. This is not something I would have originally considered as a wintertime issue, but it's something to prepare for. First, because mice, no matter how cute they are mammals, just like the rest of us. And they want to stay nice and warm and cozy, and so they're going to find their way into your apartment. And now is the time of year that they're going to sneak their way in. So you should take a caution and make sure that there's no little holes for them to get in through. And if they are starting to get in, you should take care of it now before they become a big hassle. Same thing goes for the less cute and cuddly spiders. They want to stay warm and they want to go where the food is, which is where the bugs are. And so they're going to be coming inside. Loads of fun. Then there's a few other miscellaneous items, sump pumps, dryer vents that you should take care of and just look out, make sure that they're properly insulated, they're properly set up. And the last but not least, do an inspection. This is a perfect time of year to go inspect your property and do it thoroughly. And it's great because you can tell the tenants, I'm not here to try to catch you. I'm here to ensure that your property is in good condition and ensure that you're getting what you're paying for from me. And if I happen to catch you doing something wrong in the process, well, we'll deal with that when we come to it. So any questions, any ideas? Everybody ready for winter yet? Not even ready to start thinking about it, are you? It's time to start doing that. Well, before we get going too much longer, I'd like to invite Dee Dee to come up and do a quick little advertising, explain who she is before we go on to the next topic.
I'm Dee Dee with Czech City, and Czech City's been a member of the Apartment Association for about 4 years. I'm also a renter, so that's how I got involved with Czech City and the Apartment Association. And there's a lot of things that Czech City can do for the landlords and also our tenants, where we do free money orders. So a tenant's having a hard time making their rent, then they can come to us and we'll take the risk for you. So Holly and I will be in the back. If you have any questions, you can come up and talk to us. Thank you.
Thanks, Dee Dee, for coming and sponsoring. Hope you guys eat her donuts, because if you don't and you leave them for me tomorrow, it's going to be a real problem. So, well, welcome. Tonight I've been asked to talk about why landlords fail, 10 fatal mistakes. And you've got this little article, so I'm not going to go word for word through the article, but I am going to just kind of go through the 10 different things and talk a little bit about them. One is failing to upgrade your property. Let me ask you a question. How is your property valued when you go to sell it? Now, I know not all of you are planning on doing that, but how is it valued?
Based on rent.
Based on the bottom line, and we call that a cap rate. So let me tell you, the best way to explain a cap rate, have you ever heard that expression, is if your net income, that's revenue minus expenses, if your net income was $7,000 and people in the market were looking to buy an investment at a 7% cap rate, they would value your property at $100,000. Does that make sense? So to add $14,000 worth of income at a 7% cap rate, it would be worth $200,000, okay? So one of the things that you need to remember if you're ever going to sell is that you need to make sure that your property doesn't degrade, because if it degrades and there's a lot of deferred maintenance and things like that, they factor that in when they go and they look at, well, I'm doing a 7 cap, but I've also got to put $20,000 of improvement in that kind of thing. So what are the things that landlords next door to you, we're not going to talk about ourselves, but the landlords next door to you guys sometimes don't maintain properly or don't upgrade properly?
Cabinetry or kitchen.
Sure, they might have 1950s cabinets over there, okay? All right. They might have avocado green appliances, which I personally love, but you know, I'm told I'm crazy. What else?
Old carpet.
Sometimes old carpet. We'll talk about carpet in a little bit. Carpet is an interesting thing. Sometimes it can be, most of the time we replace it too often, to be honest with you. Sometimes we wait too long. Anything else you think of?
Dingy lights.
Sure. You know, let me talk about 2 things. The energy efficient lights, okay? If you switch to those earlier, you upgrade it when you've got to replace them anyway, you ought to go to those energy efficient lights, because that's especially if you're paying any utilities, that's a bottom line issue. Soffit and fascia. If you let the soffit and fascia go, that can be tough, and it can take away value when you go to sell your property. Okay. One of the things I like about this is she says, be careful what you spend money upgrading. Okay. You could think that the siding is horrendous and spend $5,000 upgrading the siding, and how much you can be able to raise the rent? Nothing. Probably nothing. But if you had a big room and you split it into 2 bedrooms, are you going to be able to raise the rent? Yeah, or if you found a way to put a second bathroom in, is that probably going to make your place worth more money? So what she says is, when you spend money on a property, when you invest, try to find something that will return on investment, if you will. Number two, failing to run it like a business. Now, I'm sure none of you in this room have been this way, but I personally sometimes forget that I'm running a business. You know, I like the tenant and I'm working with them a little bit, or, you know, I'm busy and so I let it stay empty for 3 or 4 months. And those things at the end of the year hurt, don't they? And so if we're going to run it like a business, we got to run it like a business. One of my years ago, I had a house we were moving out of, and we were either going to rent it or sell it. I didn't know which, so I listed it both ways. And this woman comes and she says, "Hey, I can clean this place for $250." And I was kind of offended. I thought, this isn't that dirty, it's not a big deal. $250? That's horrendous. Well, I decided to do it myself. It took me 3 weeks to get around to it. It was a $1,000 place. It really cost me $750, didn't it? Because of my downtime. If I'd have paid her and had it done the next day, I would have saved $500. So sometimes you got to think about that. Next is wearing your hat as a landlord. I like what she says here. You're not your tenant's mother, father, best friend, bishop, pastor, rabbi, or social worker. You are a mere landlord with a mortgage to pay. Okay? You got to just stand up to tenants and say, "Listen, I got to pay my mortgage. You've got to pay your rent." You can't let them push you around. Okay? If you get confused about what hat you're wearing, you're not going to be as successful. Number 4, failure to demand rent. Again, you guys don't go to the store and go up to the teller and say, "I want to buy all this stuff," and pay you next week. Okay? You insist that your tenant, you need to insist that your tenants pay you before they use the rent, just like you pay for items before you use them. Okay? Failure to act promptly. True story. I got this great little text. Don't you love text pictures that your tenants send you of things that are going on with your place? So I get this text on like 4 on a Sunday afternoon, and there's a little bubble in the sheetrock in the bedroom ceiling. And it's Sunday afternoon, so I'm just kind of ignoring things. And I did look at the picture. But 2 weeks earlier, this was the big rainstorms in August. Remember how wet it was in August? And this roof I've been limping through. I knew I had to replace it eventually, but I kind of been putting it off. I think it's not a big deal. I thought as soon as, get a little bit of leak inside, I can take care of it. Well, within 2 hours of that little bubble, the whole dang ceiling fell in. Okay? That's how fast it goes downhill sometimes if you let it go too long. And so it was another reminder to me that you've got to stay up on things and act promptly to solve problems. Number 6, failure to get good tenants. Have any of you ever had a bad tenant? A couple of them. Okay, so you know what I'm talking about. Okay, guys, it's easy these days to do background checks, okay? And we've always recommended what we call a 5-finger background check. Credit and criminal, those are pretty easy. By the way, I was explaining to somebody from Utah County the other day, and I don't know what the statistic is, but it's like 50% of landlords in Utah County don't do background checks or something like that. And I was trying to explain to this guy, he asked me, what are the 2 most important things you think in a tenant's background? I said, number 1, their rental history, because the best indicator of future performance is? Right, past. If they've got a good history with their last landlord, they're probably okay with you. And number 2, their car payment. If they pay that car payment late, guess what? They're also going to pay late. But if they've got a track record of always paying their car payment on time, even if they've got medical collections or other things that came, the Comcast bill or whatever, I'm not as concerned about those as I am about the car payment. And I was trying to explain to him how easy it was to check that, and he said, "I've never done a background check." Now, this is a member of the apartment association, comes to all the meetings down in Provo, and he's never done it. It's really easy, and so we shouldn't be getting bad tenants because we should be having a good system to screen them. Number 7, failure to thoroughly screen these tenants, okay? These are kind of related, but one of the things that I think is really important is some landlords don't call the past landlord. How many of you have had a tenant move out and didn't get a call? I bet every single one. I bet it's 1 in 10 of my tenants that moves out, the landlord calls me. And so when they do, I'm really proud of the landlord. Most of the time I say, yeah, they're really good. Sometimes I say, yeah, did you know I evicted them? Or did you know they owe me money? Or things like that. And they say, oh, I'm so glad I called you. So that is probably the easiest step to skip. And I got to be honest with you, sometimes I even skip it. And I gotta tell them, I got to make myself stop it because that is one of the most important things. Yeah, please. By the way, be interactive tonight. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, if you're running the background check,
Yes.
isn't that eviction notice going to be on there?
So what kind of eviction activity would be on a background check? The only thing that would be on there is if there was a judgment in court, okay? If I hire an attorney and go 95% of the way through the process and they move and we don't get a judgment, it's not on there. In fact, in Utah we have a kind of a weird system, and it's a good system for us, but we don't ever really have a trial and deal with damages and things like that until after we kick them out of the apartment, okay? So sometimes you go to court, you kick them out of the apartment, and the judge says, well, kick them out, but let's defer the financial matters and the judgment matters to a trial. And the attorney calls you and says, it's only $500 more to have a trial. Do you want one? And you say no. And so guess what? That probably doesn't go on someone's background check. The only thing that would go on a background check is if we actually had a judgment, we had to send the sheriff over to get them out. And in those cases, we probably do have it on background check. Yeah, great question.
So I have a smaller 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom, 1-bath duplex in Sugar House. I tend to get a lot of younger kids that this is maybe their first rental.
Uh-huh.
And so they don't have really
Yeah.
a great credit background or any credit background, and they don't have a long rental history.
So what do you guys do with what we call the first-time renters?
Yeah.
Okay, so you say, hey, man, nothing personal, but first-time renters, their brain hasn't connected to their spinal cord yet, so I don't know what it is, okay? I had a babysitter that babysat for me for years. She gets 18, she goes and moves out. She calls me within a month and she goes, Paul, I don't like my roommates. I want to move out. Is that okay? And I had to kind of explain to her, Alicia, of course that's not okay. You signed a contract. You're jointly and severally liable. You can't just bail on these guys. Your name's going to be on that thing and you're going to be responsible. So, I've had tenants that say, I'm going to turn off or reset the garbage disposal or turn off the gas or the water, any of those things that they just haven't learned that yet. And so most landlords require a little bit extra security if there's not a previous landlord history to verify. He does it either through a background check. What do some of the other of you do?
If it's a first-time renter, Mama comes to check in the apartment, Mama signs the contract too.
Okay, so the cosigner. The other thing is double deposits or triple deposits. I see Craig Ronan said he does that. By the way, do you see the suntans on these guys in the Knights over here? They were on the landlord cruise with us a few weeks ago. We had a really good time. It was a
You
lot
missed a lot of fun.
A lot of fun and a great legal seminar, really helpful. Did that answer your question? Okay. Any other questions or comments? Yeah.
We ran a background check on
Yes.
the guy, and he told us we had a felony.
Okay.
And it did not come up, came up in our records.
Okay. So he said he had a felony. Why did it not come up on the record? Well, there's a couple of reasons. Number one, it could just got missed. Okay. Sometimes that happens. I think it's 1 out of 10,000. Somehow it just doesn't work. Most likely, though, is it was older than 7 years, and oftentimes they go off the record at 7 years. There's sometimes they're on there still, and you marvel it's 15 years old and it's still there, but supposedly it's supposed to go off after about 7 years. Another option is that they gave you a bad birth date. Okay, criminal history is not like credit history. What's credit history connected to? The social. Criminal history is connected to name and date of birth. So my name is Lawrence Paul Smith Jr. So if you think about that, that is a lot of aliases that I could go by. Sometimes I go by L. Paul Smith. Sometimes I just go by Lawrence. When I fly, I have to use my name Lawrence. Or sometimes people call me Larry. That's my father's name, not me. But you can see that especially women who get married oftentimes have a lot of aliases. And if they just put one number off on a birth date with a kind of a different name, you might not find their criminal history. Okay? So that's likely what happened. All right, other questions? Really good stuff. Okay, number 9. Failure to be cheerful. I like positive people, don't you? I don't like hanging around negative people, and so neither do tenants. And so if you're the glum, sourpuss landlord, you're just going to have a harder time attracting and keeping good tenants. She tells a story about she had kind of a property manager that was a sourpuss, and so the tenant didn't want to rent, but on the way out, the maintenance guy was nice and friendly and loved it there, and they went back in and rented because wanted to be around a person, a maintenance guy that was just fun and took good care of people, and so that can make a difference. Number 9, streamline your expenses. Now, this is where I'm going to talk about carpets and some other things. When we replace carpets, we often do it prematurely, okay? Or we often do it because of a little bit of poor planning, or we often do it because we didn't think about other options. So let me give you a couple of things. Where do carpets wear the most?
The entry door.
So what could you do to the entry door if there was a wear area?
Put tile.
You could cut out a 5 foot by 5 foot, and you could put tile. You could probably keep the rest of the carpet, clean it all up, and save a couple $1,000s. Or the next time you're putting down carpet, don't put carpet in an entryway. Put tile there. Okay. What other areas wear?
Kitchens.
Yeah, so we don't want to put it in kitchens or bathrooms or
baths.
things like that. There's just too much
Stairs.
stuff.
Hallways.
Stairs and hallways. Now, stairs are kind of expensive to do hardwoods and things like that, but hallways are really inexpensive to do hardwoods or laminates or things like that. So the less traffic you have in those wear area, or less, carpet you have in those areas, the less you'll have to replace it. You know, I don't know what your tenants do while they watch TV. I swear mine just sit down and rub their feet against it. Do you know what I'm talking about? You go, what? How did they do that? And so I learned years ago to go to Home Depot and get like a 6x9 or an 8x10 rug. Sometimes when it matched the carpet or pretty close, it's $80, $60 or whatever. And then I take it over as a move-in gift and I place it for them. And where do I place it? In front of the carpet, under the coffee table. They always have ketchup or stuff. You know what I'm talking about. They spill and red punch, and so I don't care about that rug. In 2 years, I'm just going to throw that thing away. If that protected a big, high traffic, high wear area, then I can extend the length of that carpet. Yeah.
So do most people prefer laminate over carpet? If you had a choice between replacing, if you have to replace
So
carpet or
I
laminate.
can't tell you what most people prefer, but I can tell you what conventional wisdom is. Conventional wisdom is you can get more money and tenants have less maintenance on a hardwood or a laminate type floor. Now there's really cheap laminates that aren't good, that wear out fast and chip and that kind of stuff. I'm not talking about that stuff, but anything mid-range or above. How many of you have hardwoods and you've had them for years and you just love them? Okay, easy maintained. You have to clean the carpet every time, and once in a while you got to refinish them or something like that. Yeah. So landlords tell me that they'd much rather have a hardwood for 30 years and refinish it, a couple of times, than replace the carpet 5 times. Okay. So let's talk about dogs or burns or holes in the carpet. Okay, I got holes in the middle of the carpet or a burn in the middle of the carpet, and I didn't replace the carpet. What did I do? Patched it. You can get these professionals, that, especially if you kept a scrap from the installation, or if you don't have a scrap, where would you get a piece? You pull it out of a closet and you put a similar piece in there. It doesn't have to match exactly because you have a threshold or a door all the time. And you get them, and they can put that in there. So they might charge you something ridiculous like $50 for 2 minutes worth of work, but they can put it in there and you can't even tell. Okay. And if any of you had people patch and do a really good job, yeah, patching is really good. Dyeing. One time, my kids, I don't know, just bad parenting goes on in our house or something. They had Gatorade or something red, and we just didn't supervise them, and so there's 70 red spots one day all over the place. And they weren't super big, or none of them were a big deal, but when you saw them, you saw them, and you saw it for every day for the rest of your life. And we were moving out of that place into another place. It was $4,000. I got a bid to replace that carpet, and the carpet was actually in decent shape. There's really no wear. And so I said, no, I'm not spending $4,000. I'm spending $400. That's what Venturi, a carpet company, charged me to come do what? Number one, they remove the red stain. And they do that through kind of a hot iron process. Anybody have reds done before? And then usually the hot iron process takes some of the dye out. And so they had to re-dye it. So for $400, we did, I think, 70 red spots. And I was in that house, that rental house. I've been moved out of there for 10 years. I was in there the other day. The carpet still looks great. Okay. And so because we dyed it, it's 10 years later, it's still looking really good. Bleach. Have you ever seen windows that, you have bleach marks through windows? You can dye those carpets. Usually when you dye a carpet, you go a shade darker. So another reason to start out with the middle range and not the darkest kind of carpet. The grays or the browns or the beiges, middle range are generally the best carpets. And don't buy the cheapest kind of carpet. Buy carpet that is mid-range. Okay, not the high end. Because again, are you going to get more rent out of the high end? Nylon. Exactly.
100%.
Okay.
Cleans up the best.
Okay. Easy. All right. What else? What tile? Why is tile better than laminate? By the way, why is there so much laminate that landlords use in our rental properties. Linoleum, things like that. It's cheaper, it's usually about 40% cheaper than tile or something like that. But if you're gonna hold on to this property for 20 years, guys, what happens to the linoleum after a few years? Well, if the tenant hasn't scratched it all up by then, and it's really easy to scratch that up when they move stuff across it, it starts to curl around the edges and things like that. And so long term, I think you're better off putting in tile. I'm not saying run out and do it on every place, but if you're gonna replace something and you're gonna hold that for a long time, probably tile or hardwoods or something that are a little bit more durable is better than linoleum. Any of you like linoleum or use it regularly and want to defend it? Okay, yeah.
Sometimes tile will break, and then
I
to
love it.
pull it all out.
So I don't pull it all out. You keep 4 or 5 pieces, and then you just cut one out and put it in.
But tile can date a place.
Okay, so there's some legitimate reasons to consider. Maybe it's easy to do linoleum because you can change it less expensively to update the look. Okay, that's a good thought.
Have you had much experience replacing your tiles when they break?
Yeah, again, these highway robbery contractors, they'll come in and they'll say, cut out one tile's $50, and they'll do it in 5 minutes. And I go, what the heck? But then when you think, what did they just save me? You know, it's really, really inexpensive. One time I had a dog chew up the corner of a carpet, stair of carpet, and it looked pretty trashy, and he was there doing some other things, and I said, I have an extra piece of that. How much would you charge me to patch that? And he said $60, and it took him 60 seconds, I swear. And I was a little pissed. I thought, this guy ripped me off. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought, no. To replace that whole stair, it was much cheaper that guy had that skill. So sometimes it seems outrageous, highway robbery, but if we put it in context and perspective, it usually saves us money, and it's a quick and done repair. Right here and then over here.
Oh, you were talking about the quality of the tiles. If
Yes.
you get a better quality tile, it's not gonna break there as easily as some
So
other tiles.
even high quality tiles can be chipped.
They can.
So you still gotta keep a couple extra just in case they're chipped, but I agree, the higher quality probably the less. It's like, and you know, here's another thing, you put a tile in a 150-year-old place that has a history of settling,
Correct.
you're gonna have issues. And so linoleum might be better in a place that has a history of settling and that kind of stuff. I have a house just around the corner in Murray on Vine Street. It's a cute little place, but it's 100 years old. And gosh, when you walk in, these concrete floors have settled in places. You know what I'm talking about? So you got to put the thicker pad in there just so that people can't feel the seams in the floor. But you know that it is what it is. Right here.
I was going to say there's a product out there called Duraceramic.
Okay.
It's a resin-based
Okay.
tile look. I put it in my own home.
You like it?
It's got a
Duraceramic.
lifetime guarantee against wear through.
Great.
It was as expensive as tile, maybe a little more so, but it has give, so it doesn't break.
Great.
I did that because my floors have a lot of give in my house. But there's another product out there.
Where do you
that I
get
really
that
enjoy.
at?
Pardon me?
What's it called
It's
again?
called Duraceramic, and I think it is by DuPont, but I'm not positive on that. But on one particular part, I went to a flooring place and said, "Do you have any, clearance Duraceramic?" They said, "Oh yeah, we've got stacks of it."
Okay.
And I got it super cheap there.
Great. Okay, number 9, streamline your expense. I think we've talked about all of that kind of stuff. The last one is failure to refinance high interest loans. Now, let's be honest, it's not as easy to refinance now as it was 5-6 years ago, okay? It's a little different world that we live in. But if you still have these 8-9% loans, you really ought to look when interest rates go down about refinancing. Let's go back to this cap rate thing, okay? If I'm able to cut my monthly payment $300, even if I got to put $4,000 or $5,000 up, points and fees and closing costs and all that kind of title insurance, it drives you crazy, all these things they charge you for. But once you do that, you're starting to make $300 more a month because you have $300 left. So think about it. That's $3,600 a year. That increases the value of your property tremendously and your cash flows over time. So most of you are gonna hang on these properties for a long time. You're not the fly-by-nighters that come and go. You're gonna have these for a while. Do think long term. Yes.
So I've been refinancing my higher interest rate ones down, for less time, paying the same amount, but I'm going to cut off 10,
So
15 years.
instead of a 30-year loan, go get a 15-year. and have it paid off. Very smart, a long-term thinker. Yeah.
A thought on this. There's a big scam going around. Refinance will do it for 3%.
Uh-huh.
You look into it, you're gonna end up deeper because of all their costs.
Points, fees,
All
costs,
that
title
is a
insurance, all
big-time
that.
thing.
You do have to be careful. You do have to be
Real
careful.
careful.
Be sophisticated when you're out there and price around and things like that. Okay, does anybody have anything else that you think are big mistakes that landlords should avoid? Bad tenants, Neil says. He says his neighbors, other landlords, have bad tenants, and he watches how miserable their life is, so he doesn't want you to do it. So. Okay, well, thanks for coming tonight, and Taylor's going to finish up here on appliances.
All right, simple fixes for common appliance problems. First off, quick poll. What appliance gives you guys the most heartache?
Fridge.
Furnace, fridge, dishwasher?
Well, it depends where, like this Magnet ones, all the appliances.
Well, we're going to go in depth on two of them that are listed in your article, and then we're going to go over some basic preventative things. But if you have any comments or questions about any appliances, I may not know the answer, I probably don't, but somebody in here does. So let's start off with this general principle. At least a quarter of all appliance repair calls are resolved with a no-brainer solution, like pushing a button or flipping a circuit breaker. How can you avoid paying money for these lessons? Well, usually you pay money at least once and then you learn your lesson, right? My favorite is the little button on the bottom of the disposal, garbage disposal. That's a great thing. Lots of tenants don't know about that one, and they breaks and you have panic and you drive all the way over there and push a button and then drive home. So, let's start with refrigerators, everybody's favorite. Not cold enough or too cold. Often this is a problem because they set the dial at the wrong spot. So, guys, and that, or they've had it set at one thing and then you tell them to fix it, they do it, and then they come back 20 minutes later and they say, it's not cold yet. It takes a little bit more time than that.
And also, if the coils are dirty underneath it, they need to be vacuumed out.
Yep.
That happened to my own fridge, a brand new fridge, and the serviceman says if you cleaned it with this brush, every 6 months, you would prevent a service call. And so I do that with all my rentals now.
Yep, you call,
Every time.
especially if there's a cat or dog around.
Yes.
That fur will get stuck to those coils.
And you'd be amazed how dirty they are.
Yeah, yeah. Kind of gross.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. My other favorite example of how it can get too hot or too cold, they pack the refrigerator full of food for Thanksgiving, and it gets too cold, so they turn it up, and then they take all this stuff out. And now without all that mass there, Physics 101, suddenly there's not as much stuff to conserve the energy, and it gets too hot. Things like that happen.
And also, if they don't have anything in the fridge, we had a tenant that had nothing in the fridge,
Yeah.
that it wouldn't cool.
Well, yeah, that's why it won't cool.
The refrigerator guy went over there and says, she doesn't have anything in the fridge.
Yeah, if it's empty, it'll take more energy to cool it down. If it's full, it will take less.
Yeah.
That's how it works. Or if it's 120 degrees outside, there's a reason your refrigerator is not getting cold. Good luck getting a refrigerator cold when it's like that. And then too cold, it could be a defrost issue or the fan's working. Check, make sure that the air is circulating. Water in the refrigerator. Well, first thing check, is it just a spill? So you yourself a little headache after that. After that, remove the back panel and clear the drain. Make sure that the doors are sealing properly. If they're not sealing, you can get air in there. It will condense and create water. Never seems to turn off. So I didn't know this one until I read this article. Apparently some of the newer models have a fan circulating air at all times. So it sounds like to the tenant that it's running constantly, but that's how it was designed to sound. So. Ovens and stoves. This is the other one we'll go over really quick. The light or clock comes on, but the oven won't heat up. I was talking to somebody the other day, first time we did this meeting, they said some of the older appliances will actually have a separate plug, a little regular one for the clock and the light, and then a big one for the other thing. And if that one breaks, then the oven's not going to work, but the clock will still keep on ticking. It can also be a power problem if you have it all hooked up wrong, or if it is just not getting enough power for whatever reason. The door won't open. Oh yeah, and if it's a gas oven, then there's a completely different system that heats it and that runs the clock. Just making sure. Pretty clear. Door won't open. First off, it's often because they ran the self-cleaning cycle and forgot that it takes up to 5 hours to fully finish before it will let you open. And if you force your way in, then you have to buy a new oven. So don't do that. Cracked top or the door hinge is bent. Something being dropped onto it, particularly if it's hot, can crack it. If the door hinge is bent, it's because somebody used it as a seat or a ladder. In either case, you may have to replace the stove. Fireworks in the oven. The heating element is burned out. This can be a simple element or a simple fix, but make sure the stove is unplugged, or else you'll have fireworks on you. And I'm sure that's not too pleasant. I don't want to try it. The oven temperature is wrong. Okay, I am a baking and cooking aficionado. I love this stuff. I was reading a book about baking a couple weeks ago, and the guy said all ovens are wrong. All oven temperatures are off now, or they will be next time you use it. It's just inevitable. So if you really, really want to have it perfect, do grandma's brownies or whatever exactly the same every time, you're going to have to get an insert one put in there. Now, if it's a serious issue, some of them will allow you, if they're electronic, to go in and reset, change the temperature, so it just reads it in a different way now. That works. Some of the older ones you can actually manually even go in and reset, or you could just tell the tenant, this oven runs about 15 degrees hot, just so you know. Simple fix. The burners are constantly not working. This happens when you have somebody like me who cannot boil pasta without it boiling over. And if they do that every time, it's going to get gunk all over the place. I'm lucky I have one of those flat ones that has, you know, the new style that there's no burner underneath. It's all flat. You can scrub it off afterwards. But if they're constantly boiling over, you're going to get the burners wet and short them out. If they're electrical, you're going to get them gunked up with all kinds of nasty stuff if they're gas. Somebody told me yesterday down in Orem that if you take a gas one and you soak it in lime away, upside down overnight, you can take a toothbrush, preferably not your spouse's, and brush out all the gunk. So, I learned that one. Any other questions or ideas on those two specifically, or on anything else? What are some simple fixes you guys have seen for things that?
Burners wear out, you just plug.
Yeah.
New burner and plug it in. Or I just pull the old burners off an old stove that I'm hauling away and save those rather than buy new ones.
Yeah, use the interchangeable parts. So if you're going to get rid of a refrigerator, you might want to keep certain parts of it that you usually use. Or an oven, you might want to look and see what parts you can interchange for future use. Yeah, that's a good idea. You don't want to turn yourself into a appliance repair place, so you don't want to store all the stuff, but if it's worthwhile, that would be great. So, last but not least, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So here are 10 things that you can do to prevent major maintenance later on. Number 1, clean the refrigerator coils. We talked about that just a moment ago. Go in there, vacuum. By the way, I knew about half of these and I had no idea about the other half, and I'm going to start doing the other half. I'm not confessing which ones I didn't know about. Don't block the air vents. Sometimes people mistakenly think that if you block one air vent, it will force more air out the other one, but it's designed to circulate the air. And so if you block a bunch of the vents, it's actually going to prevent the air from going out the other ones.
Are you talking furnace vents?
Well, no, any air vents, really. Furnace vents, the refrigerator needs a vent to pull in air, but specifically for, the heater vents. Don't overload your washer or dryer. This is a hard one because generally, hopefully, most of you aren't doing your tenants' laundry for them. And so it's a hard one to be there to monitor. Same goes with a little bit later, don't slam the door. Generally, you don't run around opening and closing the door for them. It's hard to do that way. Clean the refrigerator gaskets. Like I said, don't slam the door. Clean the lint filters. And you're probably be surprised. You get those first-time renters we talked about earlier, and their brain has not fully connected with their spinal cord. That doesn't mean just that they don't understand the rules of the lease. It may understand they have no idea how to run a washer or dryer properly. And they may not know to clean the lift. So, Mommy and Daddy didn't teach them. I know it's not your responsibility to teach them, but it might be prudent to at least advise them on that just to make sure they don't ruin your appliances. Don't spray oven switches because they can get gunked up. So if you use spray cleaner thing on it, they can get a little grime in the switches that can be difficult. Don't drag clothes out of the washer. We'll tear the rubber gasket door so you're supposed to lift and pull. Clean your dishwasher screen because food will get trapped in there and all nasty. And then last, change your furnace filter. And this is a wonderful excuse to do an inspection. You can be like a lot of landlords and say, I want the tenant to take care of it, I'll provide them some every once in a while. That's great, but it's cheap. Just like the batteries of the smoke detector, you do those two things once every 6 months. Gives you a great excuse every 3 months to show up, tell your tenant, hey, I want to change your furnace filter for you. This is what I do because I'm an awesome landlord, the most awesome landlord you're ever going to have. And I do this wonderful service for you. And in the meantime, I get to look through your place just to see if there's any problems going on. Any other questions, comments, concerns, suggestions? All right, well, we have a couple announcements. First off, next month on October 30th will be the meeting here, so the day before Halloween. And we will have 3 topics: emergency preparedness, inspections, and one of our most popular meetings all year, the UAA forms and contracts. We'll go over in depth how the forms work and where you can get them. We also do an annual review of these forms with a lawyer. We go through and we see if there's any new processes that need to be included in the lease or the contract, and we also review them for any changes in state law. But if you have any feedback for us or any suggestions, anything you'd like to see, we will certainly take that under advisement for the next time we review these in the beginning of next year. So we'd love to get any feedback or any comments on that. And then just another quick couple announcements. We have this meeting next October. We have in November our annual meeting, which will be a big giant meeting where everybody comes instead of one down in Orem, one up in Ogden, one here. We have one giant meeting. We elect our board of directors. And this year it's going to be special. This year is our 80th anniversary as the association. And so we are going to have a wonderful big party, and we're going to invite all of you and have dinner, and we'd love for all of you to come. And so watch for more information on how to come to that. And if you don't get more information, feel free to call us. We'd love to have you guys come and participate in our 80th anniversary celebrations.
When is that?
That will be on November 19th. Yep. And we are still figuring out all the details for that, but we're going to have a big party. And then the 4th week of December, for some reason, people usually have something more exciting to do than hang out with us, so we don't even do a meeting that week. And then we'll be back in January, and we'll have a whole new series of exciting classes.
Did you say the November one's going to be here?
No, it will not be here. I think it's going to be Little America. So it's going to be an exciting one. All right. Well, if there's no other questions, we are done. So welcome to polish off the rest of the donuts so Paul and I don't eat them tomorrow, and hang out and ask any questions you like.